Wonderful, thank you. And if you are an investor in the audience, I'd like you to identify yourselves and come up to the front, please. We're eager to make sure that you get the front row view of these businesses and have the first opportunity to ask questions.
We have one investor, two investors, thank you, three investors.
There we go.
Four. Well, thank you so much. I'll speak to you later.
Is it working? Yes. Hi. Good afternoon again and welcome. My name is Kendra Halverson. I'm with TechnoServe, and I'm very excited to have the opportunity today to moderate a discussion and presentation from these exciting agribusinesses here in Africa. I've been asked to kick us off with a bit of an introduction to set the stage, and I really wanted to share my own personal excitement about the potential for investing in agribusinesses in Africa. I've worked in the region and in this sector for more than 20 years, and I have to say there's no time like the present to be investing in these businesses. As many of you will know, sub-Saharan Africa is growing and urbanizing rapidly. Between the years of 2000 and 2022, the urban population more than doubled from 210 to 513 million, according to the World Bank. This has created skyrocketing demand for all kinds of food products and fast-moving consumer goods across the region. To meet that growing demand, Africa has been importing more and more food. Since the turn of the millennium, the FAO says that the volumes of dairy and cereal imports have more than doubled, and vegetable oil imports have tripled. There is no inherent reason that the majority of that food can't be produced and processed here on the continent. Africa's young and growing population means that those opportunities for businesses will only grow. The UN tells us that by 2033, 3 of the world's 10 most populous nations will be here in sub-Saharan Africa. Digital technologies and new remote sensing applications that make it easier to share information and collect data are also helping to make sourcing from a fragmented supplier base of smallholder farmers more efficient and more cost-effective. So how do we take advantage of these opportunities to transform local food systems? We need more competitive, growing agri-food businesses that can become the anchors of our food system. And in order to grow, those businesses need investment. They need access to finance. So this term, access to finance, it's one we use all the time, over and over in our reports, our blog posts, our proposals. Has become a bit sterile. But there's a real human impact of investment. Human impact like that of Java Foods. Java Foods is a company in Zambia started by Monica Musonda in 2012. At the beginning, it was a small company distributing instant noodles manufactured in China. But Monica's ambition was that Java would become a major food company, manufacturing in Zambia, sourcing in Zambia, and producing more nutritious food for the growing urban population. It was a slog at first. The local banks required Monica to put up personal property as collateral and would only lend her very small amounts of money. The capital was limited, and so too was the growth of Java Foods. Over time, the business became more competitive. With the support of USAID, TechnoServe and Partners in Food Solutions provided technical assistance to Monica on product development, setting up production lines, and introducing good manufacturing practices. Finally, with those improved operations, Java Foods got the big equity investment that was needed to fulfill Monica's vision. Today, Java Foods manufactures its own instant noodles made with Zambian-grown wheat. It produces instant porridge with Zambian-grown corn and soy. Its products are fortified with essential vitamins and micronutrients, and they're distributed across the region, reaching consumers up and down the socioeconomic spectrum. There are thousands of farmers today who have a market because Java Foods was able to grow. There are dozens of workers with jobs, and thousands of families who are eating more nutritious, fortified food today because Java Foods was able to grow. This is what the human impact of investment and access to finance can look like with agribusinesses. And that's why I was delighted to be invited to moderate a session here at the Deal Room. For those of you that don't know TechnoServe, we're a nonprofit organization that was founded 55 years ago. And for more than 5 decades, we've been working with agribusinesses in the global south. Since 2010, we've worked with nearly 600 food processors across Africa. We do this work because we know that when agribusinesses thrive, they have the potential to benefit farmers, consumers, and workers, and to create a more inclusive and more resilient food systems, just like Java Foods has done. In that work, we've seen that the combination of finance, technical assistance, and a supportive ecosystem is a powerful approach. In particular, we've seen the benefit of using blended finance to fund technical assistance alongside private investment. Such technical assistance can help to ensure that companies that receive investment have an even greater impact on improving the food systems as they achieve commercial success. In the CASA Technical Assistance Facility, which is funded by FCDO, we work with impact investors and DFIs to identify businesses in their portfolios that can benefit from more tailored support to make their business models more inclusive, to drive local sourcing, by investing in services, products, and assets that can drive material and sustainable increases in farmer incomes and resilience. We develop supply chain solutions with those businesses that help to propel their growth and reduce the risk to investors while creating environmental and social benefits. One example of that work is with an edible oil processor in Ethiopia that wants to expand capacity and increase their smallholder sourcing. To support their expansion, we've worked with them to develop an inclusive business strategy focused on establishing a new sourcing model for sunflower and potentially for the rapeseed value chain. These can be rotational crops for soybean and barley that they're already producing. The model involves working with trusted intermediary agents and farmer cluster groups, and these agents will provide financing, extension, and loyalty programs to farmers to grow the supply chain by reducing side selling risks. That business will also invest in establishing a field and extension team that provides agronomic advice, capacity building, and monitoring support to intermediary agents and farmers. In this instance, there's a case not only for the business, but for the farmers to invest in sunflower as a rotational crop with soybean, and it can help to increase their incomes by $100 per year. If proven successful, this model can benefit up to 54,000 farmers. And if rapeseed proves to be a viable rotation crop, that could reach 85,000 farmers and help to create hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs in the value chain. Adoption of these models will lead to sustained investment in an inclusive business that displaces edible oil imports and bolsters food security by fostering sustainable development of oilseed productions in Ethiopia, and has the potential to link over 200,000 farmers to a vertically integrated processor and critical services that will improve yields and incomes. This is what value chain solutions look like, aligning the interests of businesses with smallholder farmers and with the needs of consumers for more affordable and more nutritious foods. In this work, at least in my conversations, it often seems like there's a need also for pre-investment technical assistance. We get approached frequently by investors that are looking for businesses to invest in, and we work with many businesses that want investment, but they're not quite matching. Right? There's a need for more pre-investment technical assistance to these businesses so that they can become investment ready, like the businesses on the stage today. Over the next hour, you'll have the opportunity to hear about these 2 exciting businesses and perhaps one more that may join us. I've really enjoyed learning about them over the last couple of days. From laboratory analysis to input production, distribution, and manufacturing, these businesses provide essential services that can support the growth of competitive African value chains. Just remember that each and every one of these investments that are made and every deal that is struck has the opportunity to create real, lasting change in people's lives. So even as we pursue commercial success and profit for these businesses, we can pursue that in a way that is regenerative and inclusive and leads to long-term food systems transformation. So now I'd like to take the opportunity to hand over to both of these businesses, and we will start with Carl Jensen, CEO of Good Nature Agro.
Good afternoon. Is this the pitch session? Sure. This is the pitch one? Oh, okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I have a tendency to be a bit long-winded, so for me, it's good there's 2 companies here for the moment. 3, welcome. My name is Carl Jensen, CEO and co-founder of Good Nature Agro. Good Nature started in Zambia in 2014 as a social enterprise with the mission of moving smallholder farmers out of poverty and into the middle class. Now, the problems and challenges that smallholders face are many, and I'm not going to belabor them here. You're at this conference because you know them, you acknowledge them, and you want to be part of the solution. But the reason that we began was because when we started to look at one challenge, say market access for smallholders, we found that it was profoundly interconnected with credit access, and credit access with productivity, and productivity back to markets and people really having that drive to grow. Therefore, we felt what was needed was an interconnected set of solutions. And we built the way that we engage smallholder farmers off of that. All of the farmers that we engage have access to inputs in a package customized to their farms, their regions, and what they need to grow well. They have access to personal, human, face-to-face training. They have access to financing tools that fit their needs, and they have access to a guaranteed market in Good Nature Agro. This farmer engagement model sits within a business model that's circular and value chain driven. It starts by engaging agribusinesses and processors, understanding what they really need to make their processes run well, efficiently, and to fit what their customers want. I'm a customer of Java Foods, and it works because it tastes good. Their easy noodles are delicious. In order to make that happen, you need to have the full chain built. So we take those insights, we bring that to our breeding and our R&D programs. And when we find a product, a variety, a set of genetics that works for what the processors need, as well as what works for the smallholders who are going to grow those crops, then we take it forward into our seed grower network. We have a 5,000 farmer smallholder seed grower network. Last year, they produced enough seed to be planted by 200,000 farmers in Zambia and Malawi. We then contracted about 10% of that seed customer base to produce commodities to go back to the agribusinesses that informed this entire chain at the beginning. Even if we only grow by increasing the percentage of our customer base for seed that we engage in contract to export, we can grow 10x. Let's take a case study. One of our major customers works in Namibia. They produce baked beans as a product, amongst others. Working with them, we were able to trial different varieties, send them to their factory, let them run tests, and identify varieties that canned better and taste better. And they also deliver a 30% yield increase for the farmers that are going to grow them. This gives us a competitive advantage both on the grower side and the commodity customer side. So we have 2 engines that drive our business. We have seed sales and commodity sales. From the beginning of the business, seed sales has been the main driver. But in 2025, commodity sales are going to surpass seed sales by volume. The biggest bottleneck to our growth up to this point has been processing capacity. In 2018, we added our first plant, which was focused on processing seeds. Earlier this year, we added our second plant by acquiring a peanut processing plant in Lusaka. By the 2024 harvest, we'll have our third processing plant and have the processing capacity that we need to continue growing through 2028 without further investment. These two engines combine to a business that's at very close to $10 million of turnover per year, or a compound annual growth rate of 48% on the top line over the last 5 years. In any given season, we range between 30% and 40% gross margin. In 2022, we had an EBITDA of $700,000, and when we close our Series B in the next couple weeks, we'll have a debt-to-equity ratio of 1 to 1.5. The reason I have long hair and a beard right now is because I told the team I wouldn't shave until we closed the round. But we continue to evolve as a business. Those engines will continue to be there, but we're really focused on increasing the depth of engagement with each of those farmers that we can add through those two engines. So on this side, this is a traditional sales funnel. Of all the farmers you can engage, we sell seed to many, we contract a few of that percentage to then have the commodity export model driving. And what's really important about where we are right now is we're using our agri-tech components to get to know those farmers one-on-one, to engage, to understand, to build KYC information and credit scores. And from that point, we can grow with each farmer, not just grow by adding farmers. Finance inputs on other fields that they have, purchase from other crops that they have, expand to asset financing, and ultimately provide full farm support. Two of these initiatives that we have going now are small asset financing for things like phones and knapsack sprayers, as well as mid-size asset financing, and the repayment rates have been phenomenal. It's a myth that you cannot finance smallholder farmers effectively. This has allowed us to expand into solar-powered irrigation, with those kits, which can cost thousands of dollars, being financed by farmers who have proven that they're ready for that tool. They can then produce off-season with crops like onion and other high-value crops, as well as expanding into other inputs that are regenerative and byproducts of what we already do. For example, biochar produced from groundnut shells that come out of our processing. Our R&D continues, and our current suite of legumes like beans, groundnuts, soy, and cowpea are being complemented by maize, sunflower, and sorghum. What this leads to is a model that's built on many engagements with farmers, helping us overcome the high costs of doing business in remote areas on small plots. And we're on pace to reach 23% EBITDA by 2027. We've recently closed a $3 million CapEx facility with the EU under AgriFi, as well as being weeks away from an $8.5 million equity raise with 3 other equity investors. We're here today to see if we can find aligned partners for $10 million in working capital to purchase crop from farmers, to finance inputs, to finance assets, and to help smallholders we engage grow. Thank you.
Thank you. That was fantastic. I'm less familiar with your business, so really exciting to hear what you've accomplished already and your vision for the future. We now have 10 minutes for questions, and we'll turn it over to you. Marisa will come around with a microphone to anybody that would like to ask questions.
Has it been that clear? Can you please state your name?
I'm Chris Wayne, work with Acumen. Hi, Carl. You flashed a quote up there about how scale at all costs is harmful. How do you know when you'll be at scale? What are you using? What metrics are you using to sort of measure what your optimum scale is that isn't harmful, and at what stage? And what do investors sort of need to know about what that looks like?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. It's really the at all costs piece that is important. I think scale can be good, but the reason that as a team we've been addressing this is because from the investment side, the pressure is often scale is the most important thing, and if you don't reach 1 million people with whatever you're doing, then what you're doing doesn't matter. And I couldn't disagree more. And I think that leads a lot of businesses to outrun their operations. To your question, when you're too focused on scale, you can tell, it should feel a bit like you're driving and the steering wheel is a bit loose when you're growing as a startup. But a lot of companies that I've seen press that too far, and they over leverage and they bring on too much debt. We've been there ourselves. They feel they should be in 3 countries if they're in 1, and 5 countries if they're in 3. And it's that at all cost mentality that's harmful. Instead, going back to what I was saying at the beginning about all of these solutions being interconnected, as a business, we're focused on, okay, if it's not just us serving farmers, maybe we can scale faster. But we need to make sure that all of those key solution pieces, all of those services are in place for farmers before we think about growing.
Thank you very much. Before we go to the next question, can I please ask everyone to scan the QR code and provide your feedback on each and every SME that is presenting? That will help us very much, and I especially encourage the investors to do so. Thank you.
Thanks. Frank Rubio with the private sector and IFAD, International Fund for Agricultural Development. Just a quick question on the focus of the small producers, a little bit more context on sort of what their size is, gender distribution, youth distribution, just to get a better sense of the type of client that you're dealing with. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So we're in Zambia and Malawi. Average farm size is 3.3 hectares. We used to have 50% plus of our farmers signed up who were female every year, and then we stopped pushing that initiative because the farmers were pushing back on it. And now we sign up families. So we sign up family units that farm together. We therefore don't have an exact gender ratio that we track anymore. There's a lot of things that we do that I didn't quite touch on. One of which is we work with a biometric payment solution that helps farmers get banked. And through that, we're able to track the number of men and women who sign up for that program. And on that, I can say we're above 50% on women being signed up. Zambia has pretty abundant land relative to East Africa. The population pressure is not as great right now. It has the same population as Malawi, but 7 times the land size. So in each context, we work a little bit differently in terms of how fast we grow with farmers. And in Zambia, we have a growing emergent farmer segment, which also engages farmers from 10 to 100 hectares. So we try and be fluid and flexible and engage farmers according to the context that we're operating in, rather than being too firm.
Any more questions? Yes, there's one there. Please state your name and your organization.
My name is Susan Tirop. I'm with the Agribusiness Capital Fund. So maybe 2 questions. One is revolving, we know Zambia is a very high volatile currency country. So maybe just to get some insight on your revenues, are they hard currency, local, and how you look at managing that aspect? Then on the financing of inputs to farmers, maybe just to understand how you look at it from a cost perspective. You are going to finance this. Will this be an additional revenue line, or how will that work out? Because it wasn't mapped in your revenue line graph.
Great questions, investor questions. Yes, so the Zambian kwacha is very erratic, and it has been a major challenge for our business, especially because we've been bringing on hard currency debt from the US and the EU. So we've been pushing very hard to balance that out, and highlighting the growth of the commodity side, that's the biggest driver. Moving into and strengthening our commodity arm allows us to do more hard currency transactions because the majority of those sales are exports. Meanwhile, in seed, we're still at about 80% local currency and 20% hard currency. Malawi's an even harder story, where the severe limitations on Forex have essentially forced us to run that business on an island. And we don't put new money into Malawi at this point in time because money can't come out. But we build our operations, and we're essentially building a grassroots structure in Malawi. Whatever we earn in Malawi stays in Malawi, and we'll see when the seas change. Input lending was the second part of your question. Thanks. Yes, so it is treated as a revenue line. It's about 8% of our top line right now. We would like to see that go much higher. The margins are actually less than seed and more than commodity, but the returns come indirectly through increased productivity. So there's a behavior change aspect involved. And right now, with the equity raise, we're putting a lot more capital into demo plots and training, and really getting all of our offerings and all of those input packages that I mentioned in front of as many farmers as possible, so that we can work with growers to adopt fertilizer and adopt other tools and regenerative practices, even when the government-based input subsidy program drops away, as it will in the next couple years.
Hello, good afternoon. Nice presentation. My name is Zubairu Salifu. I work for AV Ventures. AV Ventures is an impact investment fund focusing on agribusinesses. I just had one question. From the benefit of hindsight, what would you have done differently in your business?
I missed a key word there. From the what?
Benefit of hindsight. Today, you have the benefit. What would you have done differently in terms of your business decisions, your financing choices, type of capital, type of structure? I just want to get into your head and say, if you could gaze into that crystal ball 10 years ago, today, what would that be? Sorry.
No, it's good.
Interesting
It's good.
question.
Yeah, it's really good. Not too long ago, I looked back at the first pitch deck we ever made in 2013, and it was a scale-based pitch deck. We were meant to be in East Africa and West Africa by now. So a lot of what is actually in the business model now is based on those hard-won lessons, where we were that business that outran our capital. We were that business that outran our operations. I try and work with a lot of entrepreneurs in Zambia that are getting started, and the main piece of advice that I always return to is to focus at an early stage. Now we're expanding, we're adding complementary offerings, we're adding back on because we've built a stable base. But at the early stages, we were trying to do a lot of the same things without having the foundation, without having the farmer's trust, and without having the reputation to make it all work. So there's a time for everything, and I think the best advice I could give myself in hindsight would be to focus, build that foundation, slow down, and then there will be a moment when you can add all of those desires and wishes and opportunities back into the plan.
We have time for one more question. And if there's no more, oh yes, there is one more question. You're not done yet, Carl.
Hi, my name is Urade. I'm an advisor to Tanzanian Agricultural Development Bank. And can I ask a little bit about your financing side? If you don't mind, can you share with us a little bit about the investor profile and who are supporting you?
Yeah, no problem. We started very small with $50,000 of founder investment and $20,000 in grants from UC Davis and MIT. We worked with 40 farmers in our first year with the focus of just really getting to understand the kind of farmers we were going to engage better. In hindsight, that was one of the things we did well, starting very small. Allowed us to get personal from an early stage. We raised our first kind of larger round in 2018. through a combination of family offices and angel investors, and our first equity round in 2020, which had about 8 investors in total, on average putting in maybe between $100,000 and $150,000. Currently, we've been working with MCE, Kenny Arth, and Global Partnerships for several years on working capital. So anyone who's interested in entering on that side of the business, those are the kind of investors that will be joining. And this latest equity round is with Oiko Credit, Goodwell, and Global Partnerships. We've evolved on the funding side where in the early years we secured a lot of grants, and we were able to run with about a 50% grant coverage on our overall expenses. Currently we're down to 6. So we still receive grants, but it's 6% of top line. Not 6% of expenses, but 6% of top line. And that allows us to continue doing innovative work on R&D. What we're looking at now is a lot of the debt that we've been receiving for purchasing crop and our working capital generally has been 12 months to 18-month term debt. We're now starting to move into better alignment with our business, which is around trade financing. I think there's a lot of interesting innovative tools that we haven't tapped into yet, but even some of the oldest tools are a great fit for our business. Collateralizing our inventory, unlocking trades through those mechanisms, revolving funds, and that's really where we're focused right now.
Thank you, Carl. And thank you for all the great questions. Keep them coming with the next investors. And if you have other questions or feedback for Carl, please make use of that QR code. It'll be up there again after oh, there it is. And it'll come back after each presentation. I'd like to ask now our second speaker today, our second pitch, Joseph Kilangosi, Deputy MD of Brazzafrique. Thank you, Joseph.
Good afternoon, everyone. In the interest of time, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Joseph Kilongosi. I'm the Deputy MD of Brazzafrique. Brazzafrique is a regional company. It's in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda. We are also serving the markets of DRC and Burundi, also South Sudan by extension of the companies that are close by there. And today I stand in front of you to give you an opportunity born out of life experience. When I was in primary school, we used to carry jerry cans with my mother to go and water plants, coffee plantations, and we grew the coffee plantation. And it started to be part of our livelihoods. But over time, this coffee plantation, the return to us as a smallholder farmer could not sustain both the running and the objectives of it. So my mother had to uproot it when I was in high school and concentrate on other things like trading. So up to today, the story of the smallholder farmer still remains the same, that he hasn't gotten the support that is needed for him to be able to move from subsistence to go to actually do agriculture as an enterprise. This opportunity that we have as Brazzafrique, we are calling it a program because it is a product of our long history of 26 years operating in this market, knowing what the smallholder farmer wants, and we want to put it together in a model of a cooperative development dealership program. The smallholder farmer have different needs, but at the social level, at the cooperative level, they are able to know what exactly they need, and therefore we need to support them at that level. The issue of food security has become worse and worse because of the 3 C's, the COVID, the climatic change, and now the war in Ukraine that has emphasized and shown the risk of depending on one area to give food to the people. Now, in this background, 70% of the food that we produce in Africa is actually done by the smallholder farmer. This smallholder farmer is doing this in a context of low income, lack of training, using rudimentary and outdated methodologies. They don't have technical backup, and they don't have adequate access to finance. So we are looking at a system that links this smallholder farmer in a setup that is going to benefit him. And I learned yesterday that from the outlook of both FAO and WFP, that June to November, their outlook is that 90 million people in East, Central, and South of Africa are in a state of food insecurity. So this is actually something that we need to take more seriously. So the solution that we are giving is to progress the smallholder farmer from subsistence actually to enterprise farming, gradual movement. We do this through what, as Brazafrique, we call the 5 pillars of mechanization, giving them the appropriate technology, training them so that they can be able to support the technology, giving them reliable backup service, original spare parts, extension services to ensure that there's sustainability in their operation. Why Brazafrique? I know very many people can do this job in disjointed way, in very many players on the same. But in Brazafrique, we have over 25 years dealing with a smallholder farmer, other farmers in the value chain, and also we've been able to work in the various jurisdictions, as I mentioned earlier. So we bring on board that experience that can be able to be tapped immediately. So our business model is that we give technical consulting, we do pre-harvest and post-harvest solutions, we do after-sales service, and we do spare parts. Our market range the entire spectrum in agriculture, from the smallholder farmer to cooperatives, to processors, to development organizations like FAO, WFP, and others, and even we deal with the agro shops. Our differentiation is that we source globally. When Brazafrique started, we were focused on technological transfer mainly from Brazil. That's where the name Brazafrique comes from, Brazafrique, Africa. But now we are doing global sourcing. We are sourcing from Turkey, we are sourcing from China, we are sourcing from India, we are sourcing from Italy. All this is because of the different needs and the adaptability of the technology. These are our financials historical, that we have a revenue of about 3% year-on-year growth with a small EBITDA, and our profit also is small because of our expansion programs. In next year, without considering this particular program, we are talking about a revenue of $1.6 million with an EBITDA of $300,000. And we expect to impact about 3 million smallholder farmers, including their families, and create 560,000 jobs to the farmers. So why am I here? I'm here to look for the potential partner that we are going to have $38 million in the next 3 years, starting with 10 million the first year, 13 million second, and 15 the last year. We've been able to internally raise 200,000 for this, and we have open to debt equity measure. And the utilization of the funds is going to be on acquisition of clients, do knowledge transfer, and the solutioning on the same. So this is the breakdown of the 38 million over the 3 years. And these are the revenue estimates over the 3 years also, about 80 million at a margin of 30%, generating about 24 million out of that. So this is beside the other business model of projects that we do. In conclusion, we are bringing a program of the smaller farmer that is not only scalable, but is multipliable in the different setups, whether in Uganda, whether in Kenya, whether in Tanzania, we are able to do it. And within a span of 10 years, we anticipate to be able to have reached millions of farmers benefited on this technology access and move them from subsistence to enterprise farming. And most importantly, this is a very fast, safe, and sustainable model that we can be able to put together very quickly with the right financing partners. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Thank you, Joseph. Happy to take questions now from the audience.
I'm sure there are questions. Yes, thank you. It's always the first one that needs to come. Thank you.
So just a question on the key revenue driver. I'm assuming it's on the mechanization of tools versus the inputs. So in terms of how do the customers, the farmers, the cooperatives, how are they financing this? Or could alternative solution where you work with a partner who finances this, you supply the equipment work? Just also thinking how the full model works to get it clearer.
Thank you, Susan. Yes, and this is what I said a bit earlier, that every distribution channel has got a lot of people on the way. And when we do it as Brazzafrique, we are able to access the smallholder farmer, because even currently we are still working with them at cooperative level. But if we are able to access them now directly, we cut a lot of costs and expenses that they could be able to benefit from, and probably even be cheaper, as well as even creating a revenue stream for the cooperative to be able to cover other expenses that they are currently doing through the normal procurement element.
More questions? Yes.
Just some clarification, please. Please allow me. Oh, my name is Esther from Root Capital. Just some little clarification on what you do. You buy the equipment, then supply the smallholder farmer, or how does it go?
Thank you, Esther. Yeah, we don't manufacture the equipment. We have exclusive distribution agreements with our principal original equipment manufacturers in the countries that I've mentioned. Currently, we are representing over 25 of them in the region. So they don't necessarily come complete assembled. So they come knocked down, and then we do the assembly down here.
Yes, there's another question. Thank you, Frank.
Thanks, Maurice. Very interesting. I'm just curious about where you sit in terms of your competition. I mean, you seem to be, based on your revenue stream, still fairly small. I'm wondering, based on your competitive environment, what value added do you have over the others that make you competitive and attractive for potential investors?
Thank you. Yeah, the numbers that I showed here are for one unit only. We have these other 4 jurisdictions that the numbers also, when we consolidate, they become more attractive. But important is the question of our market position, and as well as why we are different. In market position, we are 70% of all the processing equipment supplied in the region is supplied by Brazzafrique in coffee processing, both primary and drying, secondary processing. In grain, that is milling, storage, and cleaning and stuff, we are not on the top, but we are in the top 10. So this is one aspect that also has been brought about by our business model. Our business model that differentiates us from other people or our competitors has been based on quality. We focus very much on quality. We also have got a model of proximity to our clients. Our turnaround time from problem reporting to be on the ground, our technical team is there within 24 hours. Most of our competitors are overseas companies that are either represented by salespeople, not technical people. The other differentiation is that we are able to do engineering of the solution. We design, we engineer it, and we give the layout and can source from different people to deliver for one particular project, not necessarily just one particular equipment. So we are able to go the entire spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. More questions? If we don't have any more questions, let's go to the third presentation. And please don't forget to scan the QR code and provide us with your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Benny Mbaga, did I say that correctly? Benny, yes, Mbaga, from Maua Mazuri. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Benny. I'm here to introduce you guys to Maua Mazuri. What if I told you what I'm holding here holds the future of our farmers? This is Maua Mazuri. It's a Swahili word for beautiful seedlings or beautiful flowers. What we do is what we call tissue culture. I'm not sure if anyone has heard of it. So through tissue culture, Through tissue culture, we make seedlings that are high quality, specifically banana seedlings. They're disease-free, and they bring in higher yields to our farmers. The biggest problem that we found in the market is that farmers are always prone to diseases, especially when it comes to banana farming, and the yields become a bit less. Now, because the yields are less, typically would say our farmers get 25 kilograms per bunch. But if you go to a place like Ecuador or if you go to India, you get at least 35 kilograms. And that's why we are here, to make sure our farmers are getting higher yields. Well, our business model operates in two different ways. So we do have our smallholder farmers that we work with very closely, but we also have commercial farmers that we bring in. Most of them have, I would say, 1,000 acres and above, planting banana seedlings. As you can see from our revenues, we are quite growing so far. We've only been operating since 2021. We are almost closing to a 2.4 million, projecting 2.4 million in revenue by 2024, working with 12,000 farmers. And majority of them, to be honest, are quite smallholder farmers as well, apart from the commercial farmers that we have. We've been raising funds mostly through our shareholders, family and friends as well. We've raised 400,000 to date, but we are now here raising 1.5 million, mostly in, I would say, mezzanine deal. But for our funding, we're looking into expanding into Kenya. We're getting quite a lot of customers in Kenya right now, but also we want to rebuild our laboratory and increase our machineries as well. Recent achievements so far, we just closed a financing deal with farmers in Kenya. We're giving them seedlings that's worth €1, but we sold 400,000 of them so far. expecting higher yields from the Taveta side as well. And that's what we are introducing, the BBB, so Banana Business in a Box. So you get 500 seedlings out of that. Traction to date, as you can see, our revenues are growing. We have two scenarios, either with the funding or without the funding. You can see without the funding scenario, we are quite projecting steadily to 700K, but we do see a potential of getting a revenue of 2.5 million by next year. We are quite a diverse team. Our laboratory, by the way, is only women-run lab. Chantal is the head of the lab. We are quite diverse in terms of business partners, also Dutch farmers as well. This is one thing that people really do not know much about banana farming, but did you know that Tanzania, we produce at least 3.4 million metric tons of bananas every year. Now, interesting fact is you can see the land size of Tanzania, around 300K, but can you imagine a country like Indonesia doing 1.32 with 1.32 hectares of land, but they produce more than us in Tanzania. They produce more mainly because they're higher yield. We do have bananas that are at least 11 kilograms. Our bananas are 35 kilograms, export quality. When you harvest after 13 months, you harvest the entire farm. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Where are the questions? Yes. I'm so happy with this engaging audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Good presentation. I wanted to ask why banana and avocado? What is the potential to scale into other crops? Because then it gives visibility to investors that you're not going to be dependent on banana and come under stiff competition from, other parts of the world where they have access to technology, access to skill set, and that kind of thing. So I want to know, do you envisage expanding into other high-value crops? And do you have some visibility in terms of timing to guide investors that may not be in your current value chain, but could potentially be interested in your expansion plans down the road? Thank you.
Great question. We do believe as a company growing organically. So with tissue culture, you can do quite a lot of products, but we focus mainly on bananas, and then we're growing as the years go by. But you can also do things like pineapples, you can do Irish potatoes as well. But we didn't want to sort of introduce a lot of products without first testing it in the market and then also getting a good grip out of it and then expand from there.
Should I say I promise Marise to ask a question or not? Okay. Yeah, Hans Perk, Oiko Credit. Thanks for the interesting presentation. And I'm not very familiar with banana, so I might just ask a very stupid question, but I think that often when farmers need to replant, there's a time between replanting and the harvest, I think especially also with bananas.
Sorry?
So especially also with bananas, it takes some time before you get the produce. So I was wondering, is there a financing mechanism to help farmers to actually adopt your product? And the other question is, some wise men on this podium told me this afternoon, focus. And I was just wondering, why are you already expanding to Kenya? Well, there seems to be such a big opportunity in Uganda.
Good question. Well, so far, I'll start with the last question. I know Uganda is quite big in terms of the market, but given where we're located in Kilimanjaro in Moshi. It's quite close to Kenya through the Taveta side. And we're getting quite a lot of customers and farmers from Kenya doing the banana business in a box. We would essentially, after some time, moving into Uganda as well. But then for now, we are focusing mostly here in Tanzania and Kenya. In terms of financing, we do not provide financing for the farmers, but we do work with a number of financiers. So like the 400,000, let's say, seedlings that are going up in Kenya, there's a Dutch foundation that is financing for the farmers. So they're paying for the seedlings, and then after some time, the farmers have like a payment schedule to repay them back.
Please state your name and your organization.
Hi, my name is Desmond Ikirima, CEO of Adron Digital. I just wanted to ask, maybe you could talk more about the financing deal you have in Taveta in Kenya and why. Yes.
The financing deal that we have in Taveta is with a group of farmers that are already registered under Wonder Group. I'm not sure if you know the Wonder Group Foundation. The main reason why we did bananas is because then they can get access in terms of the market to sell it to companies like Twiga, right? I'm not sure if I answered your question very well. Sorry? Twiga.
Thank you. My name is Prosper. I'm CEO of Spring Life. Thank you for presentation. So my question is, I see the banana you produce from Labo. How do you convince people to compete with the local banana, which produce without through laboratory with your plant? Thank you.
Yeah, so convincing farmers can get quite difficult. Believing is seeing. Seeing is believing. We have our farms up in Moshi, where we planted the bananas ourselves as well, like 35 acres. And we do have Farmers' Day, so the farmers can come in and see the bananas. If you come into the farm, to be honest, you can tell the bananas are different because then it's 35 kilograms. You can't get that in any market. For 35 kilograms. It's quite big. So believing is seeing is believing. Once the farmer sees that, they buy from us.
Are there any, oh, I see more questions there. We especially encourage the investors to ask questions because this is an investor pitch. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Lilian Kale from University of Dar es Salaam. I can see that you are investing in the agriculture value chain of banana. And I was wondering, because here you are just talking about the production point, and I can't see any value addition as far as you can see. There's a lot of opportunities from banana trees, banana grass, banana itself, banana flower, and all this has a lot of value, whereby you can now see how you can convince the farmers that there's a lot of opportunities throughout the value chain, instead for you to just focus on the production point. How are you going to come in and see how you can bring professionals on this point of value addition? Thank you.
In terms of value addition, we only sell seedlings, banana seedlings. And the only value that we add in there is that they're disease-free. Now, pretty sure you know, coming from the university, there's quite a lot of diseases that the banana trees are facing right now. So we give our customers disease-free seedlings. So that's our biggest point so far right now.
There's another question. You get a lot of questions, don't you?
That's good. It's good.
Yeah, thanks. Interesting model. Building a bit on what the gentleman asked around farmer acceptance, which I think is a critical piece of this business model. I'm wondering, is the business model driven solely by farmer acceptance, or are you looking at other kinds of potential markets? Because I'm imagining that maybe there are government programs that these farmers are receiving seeds, perhaps, that might, for free, that might compete with your model, because ultimately they have to pay for these, I'm assuming. No? So I'm wondering if your model contemplates looking at partnerships with public sector, distribution of seeds through these public sector programs, which could generally mean significant increase in market in a very short time.
We do have partnerships with quite a number of NGOs as well, where they do pay for the seedlings for the farmers. We are looking into now doing the BBT project, so that's government owned. But majority of our partnerships are with NGOs so far.
Thanks. I'm Samuel Kileo with Samora Ventures here in Dar es Salaam. So seeing in the world, like Latin America, there's basically one cultivar of bananas. It's Cavendish, if I'm not mistaken, which makes it extremely prone to being completely wiped out if there's a massive disease. So are you working on any diversity on the varieties that you're giving out, or is it one variety, which in 10 years, the whole country, the whole region has just one variety, which is prone to being completely wiped out, hence making a business model tough? But secondly, also, Carl was saying he started with talking to the industry to get the right taste. So is the bananas that you're working with, are they the right taste that people want, or is it a new one that you then have to introduce to force consumption habits to change?
So one point of correction, our bananas, our seedlings are completely, there's not something new, right? I'm not selling a completely new variety. We do have 5 varieties, so there's Mzuzu, Grand 9. We've been working with quite a number of universities as well, as part of research and development for our company as well. I wish I came with the bananas, actually.
Can I remind everyone of the QR code? Please scan and provide us your feedback. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I'm walking to the wrong person.
Yeah, this is a follow-up question on what Frank just asked about, let's say, the revenue model. So a lot of it is based on NGO funding, I understood, which is for investors not necessarily a very attractive model to invest in. So I was wondering, can you expand a little bit on what the revenue model looks like beyond the NGO funding, which at a certain point is going to dry up?
Yes, so as I mentioned, apart from NGOs, we also have commercial farmers who own, 1,000 acres and above. So what we do is we do quite a lot of land development for them in terms of, let's say, putting in 10 acres every month until to get up to the 1,000. And then we employ farm managers and farm supervisors. They come up to our farms and we do training for them for about 2 weeks. And then once they go to the farm, they start the job from there. So these are more like commercial, private-owned farms.
Questions? I want to give everyone the opportunity to ask questions. Maybe also open up the floor to other SMEs who want to learn from this experience. No? Was it so clear? No, I have one person.
Good afternoon. My name's Mrs. Gloria Pekani from Malawi, Milele Agro Processing. I know Good Nature Agro, we've tried to get some seed from you. I just wanted to know, as you're growing in the canning industry, especially when you're doing the thrashing of the beans, because you're doing with smallholder farmers, how do you ensure success of thrashing, taking cognizance that the bean, that actually, which is the navy bean or Michigan, splits the tester? Because that's a challenge with smallholder farmers because they do traditional thrashing. That's keen to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's for those who haven't seen it, the traditional threshing is piling everything together and hitting it with a very large and long stick. It's a tiring, somewhat violent process, and I think there are a lot of answers that need to come together there. One is around the timing of training and engaging farmers on timing of harvest, where a lot of farmers tend to leave it in the field a long time. It depends on your rotation, what crops you have, when your maize matures, because maize always jumps to the top of the priority list every single time, as well as working with companies like Brazafrique, and I was picking Joseph's brain about this before we came up here. There are much better technological solutions now that exist that aren't always available to farmers, which is a combination of getting the right players in the room. Someone asked a question too, Joseph, about what about financing tools as well. There are several companies starting up now that are focused on asset financing solely. They're doing great work. So I think the best role that we can play in that space is helping stitch together a number of players and build a networked solution, as opposed to Good Nature really doing everything ourselves. So we're always happy to be a part of that, always happy to prioritize partnerships that can bring in something that can work for farmers.
Thank you. Any more? Now is the time. Yes. See, I always have to prompt. No. Thank you.
This is an investor question. As you take on equity, you're having conversations with investors about exits in markets that are historically difficult to achieve exits in. How are you honest with investors about what exit looks like in equity markets, and how are you potentially thinking through structuring financing in a way that would support both your business growth and where you are and an investor return?
So it's a really dynamic space right now, as everyone in this room knows. There are a lot more agricultural enterprises than there used to be. There are a lot more impact investors than there used to be. There are a lot more businesses, aligned businesses, who are looking at M&A in creative ways. The story we tell to our investors has a lot of grounding in international fact, and I highlight international because there's not a lot that's happened in Africa yet. However, we started as a seed company, and when you look at how seed companies have been investing over the last 30 years, the first step is to invest from a mainstream crop, which is usually maize, into niches. We're a legume seed company, so we can tell that story of large maize companies that have acquired niche companies and expanded through M&A in that direction. Then about 10 years ago, all of the seed companies shifted to investing in tech companies and investing in agri-tech businesses that could give insights on what farmers are actually doing on the ground, combining on-the-ground data and satellite data and a number of sources. And if you look at ag businesses now, and these former seed businesses that are now fully encapsulated end-to-end, they're essentially looking at becoming banks. And so the niche investments have translated into that full farm coverage, which have translated into agri-tech, which are now translating into finance. And what we're building, not for that reason, but because we feel this is what's necessary to serve smallholder farmers in Zambia, is that. All of those tools together. And that's the story that we can tell with some real tangible examples.
I think this is a very good time to wrap up. So, Kendra, can I please? Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just going to wrap up by first thanking Carl, Benny, and Joseph for these great presentations. And most importantly, for your vision and your commitment and your persistence in starting and growing businesses in environments that are challenging, and sticking with that, and for bringing those ideas to us, and for creating businesses that will ultimately be profitable anchors in our food system, and also create opportunities for tens of thousands of smallholder farmers and workers across the continent. You've highlighted quite a diverse set of opportunities: input supply, manufacturing equipment that's important for value addition and for production, and a farm to market value chain solution, all of which are critical in the evolution of food systems across the continent. So thank you for that. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the fantastic questions. If you haven't already used the QR code or the URL to share your feedback or submit questions for this fantastic group, please do so. Before you leave, Marisa is going to share information about a few additional deal rooms and pitch sessions like this so that you can come back for more.
Thank you so much, Kendra, for your great way of moderating this session and making it a great success. The only thing I want to say before we leave this room is that this was the first of 6. So please, investors, be there at the other ones. I'm afraid the other ones have a smaller room, so we will be more strict in who gets into the room. So be there early and save yourself a seat there. Thank you so much for these great, you have now shown how it can be done. And there are many SMEs, probably also already in this room, who have seen now a great example. And I just hope that let's make this AGRF deal room here in this summit a great success. I trust and hope for your active participation also in the other sessions. There is a separate program for the AGRF deal room. You have all the sessions in there. So I'll see you there in the next one. Thank you so very much, and please use the QR code. That's the way we can track what's happening. If you can't scan the QR code, please come to me, and I can give you a paper version, but that's so old school. So thank you so very much, and see you in the next one.